والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآل محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا محمد وآل محمد. A second time. Peace be upon the beloved of our hearts, Muhammad, and his progeny with the loudest of your salawat. Respected elders, scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. When putting my thoughts and facts for this special lecture in which I'm honored to share with you this evening, I had many interesting discussions with scholars, learned people, as well as brothers and sisters. Reading up on the events of Ghadeer, the facts are clear and straightforward from both the Shi'i and Sunni historical traditions as to the event taking place and to its implications from a political and religious point of view. What I find fascinating and interesting, and at times what is missing, is the psychological aspect of the grand event of Ghadeer and its impacts on the believer's psyche, meaning the human mind, soul, and spirit. As a psychotherapist, I'm not an actual Islamic scholar yet, inshallah one day. So as a psychotherapist working with the mind, the soul, and the spirit to help clients reach their full potential in life, including working through life challenges or living with mental illnesses such as stress, depression, anxiety, or personality disorders, I am fascinated seeing how people can work through their life challenges while still living with the dignity to respect the part of themselves that makes them human. Deep depression, as we know, can debilitate a person from reaching their full potential. Indeed, however, when applying the concepts of spirituality, motivation, and the effects of belief on the hearts, which are all psychological concepts related to our Islamic beliefs, I believe, and I have seen how people can pull themselves through these challenges and out of these places of distress and live fulfilling, rich, and meaningful lives. As to what fulfilling, rich, and meaningful can be defined as, that is up to the individual and how they choose to believe it. However, experiencing illnesses of the heart can only squeeze and wring a believer into deeper and more spiritual paths and directions in life. Things that once seemed important and valuable lose their luster and appeal after tasting the depths of despair and challenges and working through them. So psychology, ilm al-nafs as we say in Arabic, or mental health, صحة النفسية, these are still taboo, meaning something rare and we don't talk about in our communities. And why is that? Why is it that we do not talk about these things? What I have seen is there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lack of understanding and knowledge and different misconceptions around what is mental health and psychology in our communities. What I find interesting is this. If we consider the fact that our faith, Islam, we have these concepts of psychology and mental health from 1,400 years ago. For example, through the concept of the nafs. This is a term that is used in the Holy Quran. The self or the soul. And if we look at it in the Quran, it describes the three parts, almost in a triangle, the three parts of the nafs. So, nafsul ammara, which is the commanding lower self. This is the self that is more going into desires and evil and wrongdoing. Nafsul lawwama, which means the self-reproaching part of ourselves. So almost like the gateway to struggling and figuring out what's right and wrong. Should I not do it? And the peaceful self, nafsul mutma'inna, which is the part of ourselves where after we work through a struggle and we reach that peaceful self. And this is also from the famous ayah in the Quran where Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim says, Ala bi dhikrillah tatma'in al-qulub. Verily with the remembrance of Allah, does the self find that peace, that itmi'nan, to reach that serenity. So we're in constant battle within ourselves in terms of what is right and what is wrong. And this is an Islamic concept in the Quran. And when we relate it to more modern Western psychology, we become afraid and move away and don't talk about these things. But our religion teaches this from 1400 years ago. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Ahl al-Bayt, their connection and their kindness to the most vulnerable of people in society prove that they had counseling back then in a way. They would be talking to people who come to them with problems, social problems, family problems, issues with their spouses, with their children, in their community. They would be asking advice and they would have questions on how to deal with struggles. So the Imams and the Prophet would listen to people, and they would also sometimes just start up a conversation with people around them. And so this back and forth, or this listening, this is a form of psychology in the sense where people are talking about the challenges and their struggles in their lives. Is that not part of psychology? Is not part of our taking care of our mental health? We had this 1400 years ago, subhanAllah, but it's only recently that we're connecting it to modern Western psychology. So Islam, as we know, came to eradicate the age of ignorance with the social, political, and the cultural injustices and norms at the time of the Jahiliyyah. And one example of which is female infanticide. Also, Islam elevated, as we know, the status of women and gave her rights and protection. In fact, women have more rights than men. Were you aware of that? SubhanAllah. And of course, Islam encouraged the pursuit of knowledge with the very first verse of the Quran, which is what? Iqra, read, the pursuit and encouragement of knowledge. So Islam forbade any cultural rituals that went against our faith, but encouraged the different cultures and tribes to keep the rich customs that is identified to our culture that does not go against our faith. Unfortunately, we see today that in our communities, we still tend to follow cultural customs, whether it comes to gender or clothing or other social norms that go against and are put above the Quran and the Prophet and what the Ahl al-Bayt taught us. They blur these cultural customs, they blur the lines and hurting our Islamic traditions in the name of propriety and being accepted as part of our families, as part of our culture and the society that we are in. So, the culture of what it means to be a follower of Ali and the Ahl al-Bayt is very different today than when it began 14 centuries ago with the event of Ghadeer. So now, having a better understanding of Islamic psychology, of mental health, the term psychology in itself, or the psyche, and what the human psyche entails in perspectives to our daily lives, I'd like to explore the concepts of spirituality, motivation, and the effect of belief on the heart in context of the blessed occasion of Al-Ghadeer and their importance on the human psyche. So before doing that, let's go back in time to the days of this historic Islamic event with a loud salawat. Ali Muhammad. We know that in Dhul Hijjah, in the 10th year, which is 632, the Prophet ﷺ ordered his close followers to call all the people in different places to join in his only, did you know the Prophet did only one Hajj? One pilgrimage. So he invited everybody to come on this one and last pilgrimage. On this pilgrimage, he taught them how to perform the pilgrimage in a correct and unified form, including how to wear the ihram. This pilgrimage was also known as the farewell pilgrimage, in Arabic known as Hujjat al-Wada. This was the first time that the Muslims in such numbers gathered in one place in the presence of the Prophet, where on his way to Mecca, more than 70,000 people, imagine that number, 70,000 people followed him. And by the 4th day of Dhul Hijjah, more than 100,000 Muslims had entered Mecca. This is a big deal because for the longest time, Muslims were not allowed to enter Mecca until the contract or the agreement at Hudaybiyah was taking place. So I encourage you to go back and read a little bit of history if you're not too familiar. So on the 18th day of Dhul Hijjah, after completing the Hajj, the Prophet was leaving Mecca towards Medina, where he and the crowd of people reached a place called Ghadeer, of course. Ghadeer was a place known where people used to greet one another or say their goodbyes before separating and traveling off to their destinations. It was also there that the Nabi received the signs of revelation with this significant verse. O Apostle of Allah, deliver what has been sent down to you from your Lord, and if you do not do it, you have not delivered His message at all, and Allah will protect you from these people. The last sentence here indicates that the Prophet was mindful of the fact and the reaction of his people in delivering this message, but Allah informs him not to worry, for He will protect His messenger from the people. So it was around midday and incredibly hot in the lands of Hijaz. You know how hot it can be. And where the Prophet stopped at the pond of Hum, then he sent for all the people who were ahead to come back, and he waited for all the people who were behind to catch up until all of them were there. And then he ordered one of his companions by the name of Salman to place rocks and camel saddles to make a pulpit, a mambar, in order to make this important announcement that Allah had ordered him to make. Now he could have just stood on top of the camel to speak, but he knew it was going to be a lengthy sermon and it would be too tiresome on the animals. So it was reported that they stayed for 5 hours in that location, and 3 of the 5 were where the Prophet was on the pulpit delivering this vital message. It was hot. People were tired from the pilgrimage and their travels, but indeed they were in high spirits and sharing the pilgrimage with their beloved Prophet, along with the new converts at the time, whose hearts were open to what the Prophet needed to share with them. The Prophet recited from the Holy Quran with reminders and warnings of the people's deeds and their futures, and he gave his famous lengthy Ghadeer speech, which was well documented by both Sunni as well as Shia traditions. Now I encourage you to read the entire speech. I will only take little bits of it for today's purposes. So the Prophet says, "It seems the time approached when I shall be called away by Allah, and I shall answer that call. I am leaving for you 2 weighty, precious things, and if you adhere to them both, you will never go astray after me. They are the book of Allah and my progeny, that is the Ahl al-Bayt. The 2 shall never separate and from each other until they come by the pool of Kawthar in paradise." The Prophet continues with, "Do I not have more authority? Do I have not more right over the believers than what they have amongst themselves over themselves?" What do the people answer? "Yes, O Messenger of God." Notice here that the Prophet uses the word believers, not the word Muslims. Keep this point in mind. After the Prophet prepared the crowd of over 100,000 people with the verses of the Quran, reminders, and where the crowd freely admitted and acknowledged his right of authority over them, which means politically, religiously, and spiritually, he then says, after holding up the hand of Ali, and we all know these verses, say them with me, "Man kuntu mawla, فَهَذَا عَلِيٌّ مَوْلَى." For whoever I am his leader or Mawla, Ali is the leader and Mawla. He continues with, "Allahumma wali man wala, wa'adi man ada." Oh Allah, love those who love him and be hostile to those who are hostile to him. These were the clear words of the divine designation of successorship after the Prophet, to which immediately after finishing his speech, the following verse of the Holy Quran was revealed to the Prophet. "Today I have perfected your religion and completed my favor upon you, and I am satisfied that Islam will be your religion." Salawat. A second salawat, please. The above verse unanimously, according to scholars, clearly indicates that Islam, without clearing up the matter of leadership after the Prophet, would not be complete. And completion of the religion was done upon the announcement of the Prophet's immediate successor. Everyone was ordered after his speech to give the oath of allegiance and to congratulate Ali. Interesting to note here that amongst the first of those to give the allegiance and congratulations was whom? Umar al-Khattab, who said, "Well done, Ibn Abi Talib. Today you became the leader of all believing men and women." Again, notice the word believing. We'll come back to that. Now let's look at the psychological aspects of Ghadeer through the lens, again, of what we said, spirituality, motivation, and the effects of belief on the hearts. First, the timing of the announcement immediately after Hajj with such large numbers of Muslims. Any of you who have had the blessing of completing the Hajj, do we have Hajjis and Hajjiyas here? Have any of you been blessed? Inshallah. Inshallah, the rest of us will get that opportunity as well. So any of you who have had this opportunity, know of its spirituality, know of its spiritual high, and know of its soul purification. You are reborn again with your intentions, right? And the incredible feelings that come with it, inshallah, that we will inshallah all attain. Now imagine performing the Hajj with the Blessed Prophet and Ali. What kind of Hajj would that be, right? How would you be feeling? It would be indescribable, right? Now, if you were a new convert to Islam, as no doubt during that time, there were thousands of new converts with the open hearts and minds to accept what the Prophet taught them, how would you be feeling? Now, with this beautiful spirituality attained, immediately after the completion of the Hajj rituals, the pilgrims and new converts receive the news from the Prophet that they are witnessing the completion of the message of their religion, especially that this was the last pilgrimage of the Prophet. The highest act of spirituality in Islam, the Hajj, followed by the completion of the religion by these two intense events, created a highly spiritual experience for the human mind, body, and soul to witness. And history noted that well over 100,000 people witnessed this auspicious event. As followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we honor this event as the most important Eid to celebrate, as it completes our faith and beliefs with the highest spiritual weighty things to follow, the Holy Quran and the Holy Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam salawat. Now, scientifically and psychologically speaking, when you are tired, you tend to be receptive to only a certain few things and points. For example, a lecture like this, or at school, the mind can only hold its attention for, let's say, up to 45 minutes. After that, it will stop taking in the important information. A laborer, for example, after a long, hard day of work, will not listen to complaints, negative things, right? But will listen and will be happy to hear about their payment or perhaps the next project. This is the natural disposition of the concept of motivation. What drives us? What interests us? What gets our attention and gets us to do something? After the long trek to Mecca, the rituals of the Hajj, the heat of the midday sun, and the hours of speaking at Ghadeer home, the Prophet culminates the long and beautiful sermon for the pilgrims with the message of the succession of Ali, thus motivating the pilgrims with the gift of Islam, the completion of Allah's order. This motivating order is the lasting peace that the Muslims excitedly took back before heading back home to their travel destinations. And they shared and spread this with the rest of the ummah. Again, the driving motivation after the Hajj and the excitement to have witnessed such a momentous event is something quite colossal and grand for the human mind, heart, and soul to have experienced. Now, another great example of the motivation at the event of Ghadeer was when immediately after the Prophet's speech, Hassan ibn Thabit, one of the companions, and he's one of the great poets of the Messenger of Allah, asked for permission to compose a few verses of poetry about Imam Ali for the audience. And the Prophet motivated and encouraged Hassan to do so, and he said so with the blessings of Allah. Now we see the beauty of the event here, how it lit up the heart of this companion, the poet, to compose words of poetry on the spot and enlighten the hearts of all the mu'mineen that were there. Finally, let's take a look at the effect of belief on the hearts. What did the Prophet ask the crowd at Ghadeer Khum before his announcement? Do you remember? What did he ask them? He asked, do I not have a greater claim over the believers than the believers do over themselves? Notice he did not ask, do I have a greater claim over the Muslims than Muslims do over themselves? He used the word believers. Mu'mins, mu'mineen. Then he said, sorry, salawat please. Then he said, leader, Mawla of the believers. A person who has faith or belief would accept the wilayah of Ali. This was the last order of Allah upon completion of the faith. At this point, in the timing of the events of Hajj, after the cleansing of the heart and the soul, in what state are the hearts of the people and the new converts to accept the announcement of the final message of Islam? After such a journey into the self and to God, the hearts are wide open with faith. We know that faith and belief depends on emotion, where religion itself is through logic and aql. Belief can be attained to those who are sound of heart. Through this beautiful example, we see how faith entered the heart of Hur bin Ziyad on the plains of Karbala because of the soundness of his heart, accepting faith as a mu'min, as a true Muslim. And what Allah says in the Quran, He knows what is in every heart. So people who were new converts and the pilgrims of clean hearts, the Prophet believed in their hearts to understand what he was talking about. Because what does belief have on the human heart? It is in the heart, yet even the hearts need a leader. And in the context of the event of Ghadeer, Imam Ali is the leader of the believers. Ali's leadership after the Prophet perfected the completion of Islam. To follow Ali is to embody what it means to try and reach the spiritual perfection that Ali embodied himself, as he is the essence of spirituality. Being a muwali, a follower of Imam Ali, is to reject the cultural ignorance that holds the nafs, the self, from reaching the full spiritual purification of its heights and its potential. For what kind of community did the beloved Prophet leave for us, if not to uphold the wholeness of the Quran, the walking Quran that is Ali. Salawat. In honor of our beloved Imam and in honor of Ghadeer Khum on this occasion today, I'd like to share with you a few words of poetry. And I know this audience likes the Nari Haidari, so whenever you want to say it. She walked into the wall, swallowed in. 3 days not a sound, nor whisper within. Surrounded by the masses, no one could get in. As the suspense, fear, and worry arose, she finally walked out through the crack in the wall that opened and closed that once only. For the prince, the holiest of places, was honored with his birth from within. Out she came with a serene smile, with the glow of the angels lightening her entrance through the blessed split. Surrounded by beloveds, he only opened his eyes to his dearly beloved Muhammad. And so it began, the journey of love that no one can understand, lest you looked upon their faces, named the highest by the highest of all, through the celestial spirits of the highest mortal of all. Held in his arms, the eyes open, and named him Ali as ordered by the highest, Ali by the A'la, Ali by the Ali, Ali by all of his names. How can we not love him and shiver when hearing his name, a name that lifts the heart up high? Ya Ali. A name that heals the broken heart, a name that finds the lost his path, a name that inspires the destitute, the name that gives peace to the most brute, the name that blesses the souls of the orphans, vulnerable and the destitute. A youth of beauty, a youth of strength, a youth of honor growing under the light of prophethood in its length, the defender of the truth, an honor of the faith. From the fragile early days of its light, his whole existence was to serve and protect with all of his might. He taught and showed us the rightful path. He taught and showed us the rightful path. To the ones who deny his unquestioning valor in sleeping in his master's bed from their deceitful wrath. To the blind who refuse his epic strength in lifting the gate of Khaybar in the battle and the battle of Khandaq. To the ones who turn away from his act of charity, bent to his Lord with the ring to the poor. To the ones who don't understand how he won the flower of the heavens' hands, with not a single word, but with the silence of her acceptance. To the gate of the city of knowledge, that we can never quench our thirst for more than we can acknowledge. To the ones today who preach in his name, with false hats on their heads with shame. You do not preach love and unity, but rather a pseudo self-serving disunity. Would he be here today? He would not claim you as his, as you have gone astray, hurting the ones he loves the most, the women, children, and vulnerable of the day. Change your ways back to him. Reflect on his words and whim, and understand who and what he stood for naught of your worldly winds. To the ones who saw the heavens descend, sealing the holy book with the perfection of its fate's end, saying he is our Mawla, not the fourth, not the third, not the second, but the first. Written in Ghadeer as the first, the only Amir al-Mu'mineen is your curse, guardian of the truth and the two weighty things, with the sword of justice, Dhul Fiqar at his wings, husband to Fatima al-Zahra, father of the suns and the stars, Hassan, Hussain, Zainab, Kulthum, and the moon, Al-Abbas, the lion of Allah, called by his mother Haidar al-Karrar, Ali Nari Haydari, Ya Ali, I call, for the fire in my heart for him will never fall. A man that no man can measure to. How can my heart not beat? It every beats with Ya Ali. Ya Ali. Ya Ali. On the day of completion of our faith, wishing we were near your door, smelling the scent of heaven by your floor. Raising my hand, all of you raise your hand in salam. Raising my hand far from here, I don't see the hands of salam. Raising our hands far from here, I call out, Ya Ali. Ya Ali Madad. Ali Ali Mawla. Ali Ali Mawla. Ali Ali Mawla. Nari Haydari. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.